All right. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Um, we're about to start. This is our second event of the summer. We're very excited to have two fantastic activists from Puerto Rico and good friends of mine, really good friends of all the just causes in Puerto Rico. We are having today a conversation with Alonso Ortiz Menchaca. He is the executive director of Otro, Puerto Rico.
Greetings.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Alonso.
Thank you for
Welcome,
having me.
everyone. And then we also have Pedro Cardona Roig, his nickname El Urbanista. He's been doing a lot of work around urban planning in Puerto Rico and protecting, housing, our coasts. He's a dear friend of mine. We've met many years ago when I have less gray hairs. He told me that a few days ago. It's true, I have more gray hairs than when we met. So happy for you both to be here and share this conversation with all of us. We're definitely going to be focusing on the ongoing crisis our archipelago, our dear Puerto Rico, is facing lately, especially since the hurricanes Irma and Maria. First, I wanted to just give a formal intro to both of these amazing activists. So Alonso, he was born in Rio Piedras. He graduated from the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras campus, just like myself and a few others here, I know. He's a lawyer and a journalist, and as I mentioned earlier, he's the founder and executive director of El Otro, Puerto Rico. Pedro is a planner and urban architect. He graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design and from Harvard University. He is the founding partner of GET Global Consulting, where he has developed his private practice in Puerto Rico, focused on drafting urbanistic plans. He's also a member of El Otro Puerto Rico's board of directors. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is being live streamed on Facebook. So I know one of our members, Merari, is also monitoring Facebook. So if folks are seeing this on Facebook, please be sure to put your comments, ask your questions, and Merari will will send them our way. Super excited to have again these two guests. So I want to start with Alonso. Alonso, I want you to, present to us what is El Otro Puerto Rico, right? What is going on? What prompted you to create this new organization? What you guys been doing? And what's the housing problem Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans are facing right now?
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me with you. I'm honored to be in this space with Pedro and with everybody here. So thank you very much for that. El Otro Puerto Rico, or the other Puerto Rico, it will be translated now. It's an organization that started as a podcast in 2021, in January of 2021. And in March of 2021, I was getting home and I discovered a letter that was laid under my door. And I was living back then in Santurce, in San Juan. And I live in a multi-family property. We were like 8 families in that building. And in that letter said that I had a 2 weeks to leave the apartment because an investor has bought the property, and he wanted us out of there. Of course, immediately I started to talk with my neighbors, and I organized the community to sue them, because in Puerto Rico you need to give at least a 30 days notice in order to take someone out of their house if there are tenants. So we were very clear that we were gonna lose the case because the law privileges the owners of properties. However, we want time, and that gives us the opportunity to look for other houses. We were in that process for 4 months, and I have to, at the end, I couldn't find an apartment. I couldn't find a house to live because at the moment, you know, you have rents that went like from $700,000 that I was paying in that apartment of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. When I went again to the market to look for another apartment, it was like $1,500, $2,000, which in Puerto Rico is just bunkers. You know, it's just extremely high rent. So after that, I started to notice that a lot of people was in the same situation, that a lot of people were going through the same situation. And I started to look up and to learn more about Act 22 and Act 60. As a lawyer, I studied that law, and I started to talk with a lot of people about what this was causing. And then we decided to make El Otro Puerto Rico an NGO, a nonprofit organization, focused on the housing problem and the fight against displacement, gentrification, and of course, Act 22. So we were born in 2021, and we have worked very, very tirelessly. And we launched the project officially this year, or a project that I will be explaining upcoming. But let me get to the point about what's the housing crisis in Puerto Rico. The housing crisis in Puerto Rico has many factors, you know. Of course, Hurricane Irma and Maria damage, and Irma, Maria, and the earthquakes of 2020. We cannot forget about that situation too. Affected between them 510,000 houses, units in Puerto Rico. Of that, 185,000 were completely lost. That means that almost 600,000 people, or 20% of our population, was displaced by Hurricane Maria. And that obviously provoked a pressure on our housing market. That's pretty clear. But then you have the real catastrophe, which is the poor, inefficient, irresponsible response of the government to that crisis created by Hurricane Maria and Irma. Just to give an example, you know, the government of Puerto Rico have thousands and thousands of millions, billions of dollars that has not been spent on the reconstruction process. And also FEMA rejected somewhat like 65% of the funds that were requested to renovate or rehabilitate the houses that were damaged by Hurricane Maria. So that's another factor that has deepened, you know, the situation of the housing crisis. Then, of course, came the pandemic, you know, COVID-19 and the problem of inflation. And of course, that created a situation in which the Federal Reserve started to hiking interest rates. And of course, that has caused that Puerto Ricans have lost 40% of their capacity to get a mortgage. So that's another problem. And then 2 other factors that I will put in that cocktail of situations that have provoked this crisis is, of course, Act 22. And for those who don't know what Act 22 or Act 60 means, It's just a law that was enacted in 2012 by the administration of Governor Luis Fortuño, in which pretty much it says, first of all, you need to not be a Puerto Rican, or you need to not live in Puerto Rico. That's the first thing. Then if you're a millionaire and you want to come to live to Puerto Rico 6 months a year, and you want to invest in Puerto Rico, then you get a 100% tax exemption, or in worst case scenario, you will pay only 4% of taxes in capital gains. So it gives a carte blanche, no? It gives completely a carte blanche, to these investors that have flooded our communities and invaded our communities. And because they don't have fiscalization, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that.
There's no way of like oversight.
They don't have no oversight whatsoever. The government does not make them invest any amount of money, and does not have any oversight of where they are investing and how much they are investing, or from where they get the money to make those investments, because they don't have to pay taxes. So no one is looking at that.
Nobody's watching over them.
Yeah, no one is watching them. So what they have done, and I'm just finishing, but what they have done is that they have seen our housing market, which is very attractive, because after all the earthquakes, the hurricanes and everything, it went down very steeply. So they went to our communities and said, I'm gonna buy the community. And they are buying 20, 30, 40 properties in a street or a community, in 2-3 blocks. And they are doing what they did to me. They're telling people, you need to leave because I'm doing this, I'm making this short rental unit. So they're displacing thousands and thousands of people. Let me just to have a perspective. Recently, they passed a legislation, a municipal legislation in San Juan, in the capital, that tries to regulate regulate short rental units, and like Airbnb and all that things, and they admit in that legislation that as of now, only in the capital, only in San Juan, you have 4,000 units in Airbnb. So that means that if you take the census as a barometer, that means that maybe 12,000 people, more or less, have been displaced only in San Juan. Those are units that were housing units, permanent long-term housing units that has been converted to short-term rental units. And that has created a situation in which the prices of properties and housing and everything has just hiked up to a level in which people in Puerto Rico cannot afford it. They cannot buy properties or housing. So you have 1 million people that are tenants in Puerto Rico. 1 million people, a third of the country, live as tenants. You have hundreds of thousands of units that were get out of the market because of the hurricanes and the earthquakes and all that. And then you have these invaders that are taking even more properties out of the market, out of the long-term market, because they're making it short-term rentals, such as Airbnbs. And that, of course, is the perfect storm to create this crisis in which people cannot rent, cannot buy, and does not find a place to live.
Yeah, no, and that's why I really like the work you are doing. I think you referred to your work to you're fighting for the right to stay of Puerto Ricans, right? So later, after I talk to Pedro now, I want them to focus on what are you guys doing to exert that right to stay? How can the diaspora, how can the Puerto Ricans everywhere support what you're doing, what you guys need, right? But with Pedro, I wanted you, from your professional perspective, you've been doing urban planning, architecture, you've been involved in many commissions in Puerto Rico. You were president of the Colegio de Abogados for a while. Um, how how is this? How is this? How what just Alonso said is impacting what you're seeing in the work you do, in the communities you work with, and what are the ways you think, from your perspective, we can start doing to stop this or contribute to stop this? Estás en mute.
Pedro, I'm mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was president of the Puerto Rico Architects Association, not the Lawyers Association.
Sorry. Te tiraste el Colegio de Abogados. Yeah,
Sí,
sorry.
sí, Colegio de Arquitectos.
My bad.
Pero perfecto. Que no se ofendan los abogados. I think that I just wanted to add just a few things to what Alonso very eloquently said. On top of the natural disasters that we face, there's a growing concern about climate crisis, climate change, and the implications that has on the future events that Puerto Rico will be facing. And our resilience plays a very important role in this, and we're not addressing that. So we have all of this economic situation that is created by the economic crisis is a result of administrative incompetence. And that has created this snowball effect, and all of these economic situations that led to the development of Act 60 and to the entrance of the Junta de Control Fiscal, the Oversight Board, and all of this. So we have created a crisis that is based on administrative incompetence. And I think that that has reached an unprecedented level of chaos in Puerto Rico. Someone was mentioning in the chat that we have we have poverty pimps. I think it was Blue Gomez. But I have to add to that, because this is a term I have used. We also have disaster pimps. Since Hurricane Maria, we have seen firsthand how these companies that develop a profit out of disaster zones came into Puerto Rico with very favorable conditions, and there's a lot of money coming in from the federal government, but it's very quickly going out through these disaster pimps. For every $1 that is invested on disaster recovery, there are $3 that are spent on administrative costs. So those administrative costs are going out of Puerto Rico. So one has to be mindful about this, because you're creating favorable conditions for outside investors. You're creating this crisis based on the administrative incompetence, and on top of that, you have these poverty and disaster pimps that are making a profit, and they're pulling out all of this money out of Puerto Rico. So that creates a very, very it's like a perfect storm. But the worst affected party are Puerto Ricans and people living here in Puerto Rico. This has nothing to do with outside investors. I think that in the sense that it's not important where these people are coming from. What is important is the difference in the conditions that outsiders have when they come and invest in Puerto Rico vis-a-vis the people that live in Puerto Rico. I pay 33 to 36% taxes, and people that are coming into Puerto Rico are paying 0 to 4%. That is not a level playing field. That is creating a lot of tension, and it's also creating a difference in terms of competitiveness for locals. And this is what we're claiming here. The right to stay is also a right to be able to compete in a fair market in which all of us can participate with equal conditions. I cannot compete with people that are paying between 0 and 3%. Plus, they're getting additional perks if they're in the tourism industry and other industries that are exempt. So I think this is one of the main issues. I don't know if I answered your question, Luis.
No, I think you did. I think you definitely explained what you're seeing. You know what I mean. You summarized eloquently, and I think these disaster PIMS, these poverty PIMS. I think that's right on. I also I think the and Alonso mentioned that this invasion. It kind of seems as a second invasion to Puerto Rico, right? Because they are and it's not, again, and I really want to touch this now, since we're talking about invasion and not really talking about where they're coming from. I mean, we all know that most of them are coming from the United States, right? Yes. And in that sense, given that Puerto Rico is essentially a colony of the United States, right? There's like a unbalance of power already in the U.S.-Puerto Rico relationship, right? So by Puerto Rican legislature attracting these PIMS mainly from the United States kind of revives all the colonial, anti-imperialist, kind of fighting to be able not only to stay, but be able to actually have a place where Puerto Ricans still live in Puerto Rico, right? So how difficult or how easy, how complicated is to navigate these waters, right? Because many critics will say of your efforts, of what people are saying in the diaspora in Puerto Rico, these people has to stop coming to Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans have to be treated fairly. And some people with, I suppose, the wrong intentions are saying, well, if you're saying that because they're mostly Americans or white people, then you are being a racist. Then you are discriminating against them. How do you combat that? I mean, I believe that's nonsense. Both PR believe that's nonsense, right? And we've been fighting it. But how do you guys deal with that? And let's start with Pedro, and then let's move with Alonso.
Yeah. Well, listen, that has been a growing argument, and whenever you don't have facts and you don't have a solid argument, you recur to those words saying that you're discriminating against U.S. citizens. I have nothing against U.S. citizens. If they come to Puerto Rico needed outside capital investment, outside investors, because we had lost our capacity to invest in the island. That is a fact. We had lost a lot of wealth throughout the years, and we had to find ways in which we could bring new money to Puerto Rico. But there's a difference between that and creating such a difference between conditions, fiscal conditions for outsiders versus locals. The government of Puerto Rico has stopped defending the public interest. They're just looking at investors and trying to accentuate their opportunities to make a profit here in Puerto Rico. The extraction of wealth from Puerto Rico is coming from everywhere. And the government of Puerto Rico is creating the conditions for that to occur at a very fast pace. So we don't not only have Act 60 that is toxic enough, we also have the local government that is creating favorable conditions for these outside investors, and they're not defending the public well-being. When we discuss outside investment, we're not talking about increasing the habitabilidad in Puerto Rico. So we're not creating
like the housing, like the proper, like living conditions in Puerto Rico or
better
quality of
conditions
life.
for Puerto Ricans in terms of transportation, access to housing, education, health, all of this. We're not discussing this. We're just talking about numbers, and we're flashing numbers. How so much investment is coming from the U.S. So much investment is generated in Puerto Rico, but they're not talking about where is this money going after this, and what benefits does that bring to the people of Puerto Rico and our living conditions. How are we using this money to be better prepared for other natural disasters? We all know that natural disasters have always been part of our geographic condition, but due to climate change, these events are of a bigger magnitude and more frequent. So we have to address this, and we're not addressing this in land use regulations or any other things. So
yeah, Pedro, great. Alonso, I wanted you to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. I want to explain something because it's important to have to understand very well the context that Puerto Rico, the political context in which Puerto Rico has lived in the past 6 to 7 years. And then I can comment on the xenophobic argument, and then go to the question about what we're doing, because I didn't answer that before. First of all, let's be very, very clear here. Puerto Rico lives under a dictatorship. No, that's pretty clear. The Fiscal Oversight Board, it's a dictatorship. They can abolish laws. They get to say how much we spent on what we spent, where we don't spend. So and many other things, no? So they're
mainly, Alonso, is because we also don't elect them. I mean, there's no participation from Puerto Ricans there.
Of course, and on top of that, we don't elect them. And we had the SCOTUS say recently in May that we don't even have the right to know how they're spending the money that we are paying to them, and that we don't have the right to get to the public files about the cases of Puerto Rico, the bankrupt cases of Puerto Rico. And then we don't have access to that because they have, and these are the words of the Supreme Court of the United States, they have sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity. So, you know, if that's not a dictatorship, then what is, you know? And that's important because these people of the oversight board and the current government of Puerto Rico, which has governed Puerto Rico for the last 6-7 years, since 2016-17, they are putting in place a displacement policy. This is just not happening just because, you know, Act 22. There's a whole policy that you can see in place in Puerto Rico to oust us of Puerto Rico, to take us out of Puerto Rico, you know. And there you can see the hikes in energy bill. You know, they have doubled our energy bill. They privatize our energy infrastructure, the hikes in the water bill, the hikes in the tolls that you have in our streets, the abandonment of our education, the abandonment of our health system, in which right now in Puerto Rico, you have to wait 4-6 months just to get to your doctor, you know? So, and in top of that, you have Act 22. In top of that, you have the housing crisis. In top of that, you have climate change and these vultures that are just, you know, taking everything out of us. So we have to understand that this is a big policy, and there's a plan here. And they told us, we have to remember the 2019 chat of the governor of Puerto Rico, which we ousted, that one of his advisors stated very clear what was the vision. He said, I have a dream, and it was wonderful. There were no Puerto Ricans. They told us right in front of her face, which was the vision of these people. And that's what they're doing. So when we talk about xenophobic arguments, I think we need to put in front the facts. And that's why from El Otro, Puerto Rico, we don't talk about Americans or United States versus Puerto Rico, because in fact, it's true that 90% or almost of Act 22 invaders are from the US, but they are Asians, they are Arabic, from Arabic descent. You know, there's a very wide range of nationalities that are coming in to Puerto Rico to you know, to be beneficiaries
to profit from the crisis.
To profit from Act 22. Of course, 9 from 10 are from the United States, but they're not the only ones. So the thing is, as Pedro said, you know, we have to put front the facts about what's happening, and the fact that this is just so unfair, and that it creates a situation in which we cannot compete, and therefore it causes substitution of population. That's what they're doing, and that's what is happening. You can see it, for example, in Old San Juan. You can see it in Rincon. You can see it in Isabela, where our communities that you can see no more Puerto Ricans, or very few Puerto Ricans, and most of their residents are from outside, because that's the main goal. It's to substitute Puerto Rican population, poor Puerto Rican populations, for wealthy and an outside population. So we have to keep that in mind, and I think that those arguments are always going to be made, just like they are made in the United States, also in US politics. And in truth, we need to state the facts and state how unfair, how oppressing is this situation to Puerto Ricans. Now, what we're doing, what we are doing is that we understood that we have to abolish Act 22, but for that, we will need a change in government, because the two parties that are governing Puerto Rico are in favor of Act 22. And therefore, we started to think, we don't know if that's going to happen, and we don't know how much time that's going to take. So we have to take the fight to them. We have to put up a contention wall to these invaders in our communities. So what we're doing is that we thought about which were the communities which they have not yet reached, but that are that has all the conditions for them to eventually reach them, you know, and start to buy them. And we started to implement and get to those communities and talk to those communities. And of course, we started in our community, which is Rio Piedras, which at the time they have not reached, but now they have reached it. And they're starting to buy properties in Rio Piedras, which is part of San Juan, the capital. And we created what we call a social investment fund, which is the only one in Puerto Rico that is created solely for attending the housing crisis. And what we're doing, it's very easy. In Puerto Rico, almost 1 in 4 properties are abandoned, are not in use. 1 in 4, almost 22%. So what we're doing is we are making this fund, social investment fund, in order to buy properties, mostly abandoned or unused properties, rehabilitate them, and put them again in the market as a long-term rental or incubating housing cooperatives. So this is the plan. The plan is we get to a community, we buy enough properties, we put them again in the market, and we state the rent that you pay according to the earnings in the community. So if you have a community that promedio, in average, makes $15,000 a year, you cannot have rents there that are $1,200. That's just bonkers. That's just insane, which is what's happening. So what we're doing is we're saying we need to buy, retire those properties from market so they don't hike the prices. If we get to those communities first, we can buy at lower prices, and we can then rehabilitate those properties, put them again in the market as long-term rentals or as housing cooperatives, and that will create, first, we will be able to affect the rental prices in that community, stabilize the rent prices for tenants, and also create secure and accessible housing and dignified housing for our people. So that's what we're doing. As of now, we have raised $1 million, but of course we need much more. This is a very expensive endeavor. So what we're asking from people is donate to the social investment fund. You can do it through elotropr.org.
Yeah, we have shared the link in the chat.
Yeah, elotropr.org. And there you can donate from $1 to $100,000 if you wish. And every single penny that you donate, you can restarlo. I'm sorry.
You could is this you can make it deductible from your returns, from your tax returns?
Exactly.
It can be deductible. All right.
You can make them deductible from your tax returns, and every single penny will be used to buy properties, to rehabilitate these housing properties, and to give housing to Puerto Ricans in need, which cannot find housing or cannot pay for the housing that it's available. So that mainly it's our project, and that mainly is our objective. And of course, we need funding, so we're looking for funding, and I think that we have to use the most clear advantage that we have right now as Puerto Ricans, and is that we are more than them. You know, they're roughly right now 7,000 people. We're 9 million people. And that's our advantage, our political and economic advantage. If we all work together in order to fund these kinds of projects and to fund these kinds of initiatives, we can make a difference. We can buy a lot of properties. There are like nearly 400,000 properties available in this, you know, in this situation. So we have capacity and we can make a difference. And that's what we're going for. You know, we're going for uniting the people of Puerto Rico and the diaspora in this project, in this endeavor, in order to buy properties, rehabilitate them, take them to the market, give people dignified, accessible, and secure and affordable housing. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, I will encourage folks, and we're gonna share this recording widely on El Otro Puerto Rico's website, so folks can engage and donate. Pedro, you were just recently in New York. What do you think can we do from the diaspora? I mean, from what you saw there in New York and in your past experience, what else do you think is needed to win this battle, right? I mean, like, El Otro Puerto Rico's initiative is incredible, right? Like trying to buy those properties, to keep them under you know, the people in those communities. But what else can we do? And is this battle winnable, right? And I think that's a question for the two of us. I think it's winnable, right? And I think Alonso, you referred to the 9 million, right? Folks in Puerto Rico, in the States, and outside the United States. So let's answer this question, and then I'm going to open the last minutes for any Q&As.
Yeah, I think that it is winnable. I think that we need to talk about spaces in which Puerto Ricans here and there can partake in the decision-making process, and also in the formulation of solutions for our current crisis. One of the things that I knew, but I saw firsthand is the fact that we tend to see each other as separate entities. The diaspora has a particular character and it has differences between the different states. And Puerto Ricans living here in the island are seen as other species. And I think that we have to build on our common ground and our common roots and goodwill, and build from there. El Urbanista was born out of the need to develop a platform for education on themes related to urban development and regulation, land use regulation, that sort of thing. I think that when there are many puntos en común, and there are a few differences.
Any commonalities, like you know, like yeah, like commonalities across the board.
There's a common ground, and we can build from there. Of course, we're all different people, and we grow in different places, so we have different backgrounds. But the same thing happens here in Puerto Rico. There's no reason why we need to keep emphasizing on those differences. And I think that one very important fact is that Act 60 is currently and constantly being lobbied by the beneficiaries of Act 60. And I do believe that, yeah, we outnumber the investors here in Puerto Rico, but I think that their power in the US, in which we have absolutely no power, is a lot greater than ours. However, when we look at the diaspora and we look at the political power that Puerto Ricans have in the US, our possibilities grow. I think that I'm surprised by the fact that I see people that are pro-statehood that are in backing Act 60, because Act 60 lives out of the status quo politically. It can never exist in a statehood environment. So defending that by people in the pro-statehood party is something that just is beyond my comprehension. But I think that there are powerful players, both in the Republican and Democratic Party. So we need to look at ways in which we can find opportunities to combat Act 60 from the U.S. I know that there's a problem with Puerto Ricans participating in the presidential elections and election to Congress. For some people, that's a problem. Since I see the U.S. as a different country, I don't have the same perception, but I respect that perception that some people have. However, I think that we have to find ways in which Puerto Ricans living in the U.S. but owning property in Puerto Rico and coming to Puerto Rico for 3 or 6 months out of the year are registered to vote here in Puerto Rico, and they exert that right in the next elections. And we can start creating additional pressure on these political parties that have sort of created this administrative chaos that I was describing in the beginning. The diaspora is essential for change in Puerto Rico. I think that that cannot be understated. That is paramount. Our future depends on the joint effort of locals and the people living here in Puerto Rico and people living in the US, Puerto Ricans living in the US. And we also have to understand and recognize that our population is very plural, and it's not all Puerto Ricans. The people that reside here in Puerto Rico, no matter where they were born, have to have equal rights to participate in the different processes that we have here in Puerto Rico. I'm accused frequently of being a foreigner, and I never clarify that. And I find it really amusing that someone that was born in Hospital Auxilio Mutuo is considered someone from an outsider. But that's just part of the thing. But I think we all have to embrace that coming together in order to promote change.
Yeah. Alonso, some final comments on you, Alonso, and then let's take some questions folks may have.
Yes. I think this is a winnable battle. Let me rephrase that. I think this is a winnable war, but we will have many battles in which we will struggle and maybe we lose, but at the end, I think we can win this war. In order to do that, we have to put in place different strategies. For example, I subscribe everything that Pedro says. We need to push this agenda, this situation in our national politics here in Puerto Rico. But there's a reality here, and it's that even if the government changes in 2024, we have the dictatorship over us. And the oversight board, even if Puerto Rico abolishes Act 22, which right now it's inside Act 60, but Act 22 has never been abolished. Act 22, it's in its full force and vigor. It was just added into another law that is Act 60. But the thing is that even if we abolish Act 22 here, it could happen that the oversight board says that affects our projections and the fiscal plan that we have for Puerto Rico. So we will not permit that that law is abolished. And that's why it's so important that the diaspora mobilize into Congress and put this in front of the conversation and the Puerto Rican agenda. This needs to be a priority in the political agenda of Puerto Ricans in the United States, because we need to raise awareness and start to mobilize the, the conversation about, the ones that are coming to Puerto Rico are the 1%ers that are evading taxes in Puerto Rico and in the United States. These people are not paying federal taxes. These people are not paying nothing, nowhere, And that's something that also affects the United States as a country. And we need to take that message to Congress, to Congress, to say, this is affecting you, this is affecting us. We are willing to abolish this act in Puerto Rico, but you have to be willing also to act, put pressure from the United States to Puerto Rico, so the oversight board does not block the possibility of abolishing Act 22. But we also need other things. We have to push, for example, the regulation of short-term rentals, and we have to put in place an act, a law that incentivizes the possibility of Puerto Ricans to get a mortgage, buy its proper home, and to lower the rent prices for tenants. And that is another conversation. We do have a plan about that. You can look us in our social media at ELOTROPR, El Otro PR. You can look for us in social media and also in our page, ELOTROPR.org, elotropr.org, in which we discuss this much further. However, this is a winnable battle. We need to unite. We need to push this fight and this agenda in Puerto Rico. We need to vote. And if we have the opportunity, I think we can go in the United States, because, well, even though we believe the United States is one of the countries, the truth is that we are affected by the decisions that they make for us over there. So we need to push this agenda all the way through. In that sense, I believe that if we do this, if we push this agenda here in Puerto Rico and in the United States, we can win this war. Of course, we can.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Alonso. Do we have? I just wanted to see if we had any questions in the chat or from Facebook. I do see. I know one question was Lourdes' question about voting. Pedro, thank you for answering that. I know Blue Gomez is saying, I said for no. I mean, like both PR defends Puerto Rican national sovereignty and independence. So feel free to look at us up botpr.org. You'll see all of our work. I do think, right, we need to exert pressure, right, in the United States and in any other forum to bring this, to win this war, as Alonso said. So we are definitely joining forces with that. I think somebody here, yeah, Frankie asked a question: how many units are planned, and in what parts of the island? I suppose, are you asking about the
El Otro Puerto Rico?
Yeah, El Otro Puerto Rico's this social investment platform you guys have.
Yes. Right now, we're working. We're starting our work in Rio Piedras, which is a very important community in the capital in San Juan. We're starting by looking to provide 50 new units of housing in Rio Piedras. However, the plan for the next 2 to 3 years is to buy enough properties to provide 85 to 100 new units in Rio Piedras. Of course, we want to expand to the whole archipelago, but that will depend on the support that we get, and that will depend on how much funding do we have. We're working tirelessly to get more funding from associations, from other NGOs and other funds, and also funds from the federal government of the United States that has different programs and everything. So we're looking for funding everywhere. As of now, we are examining 2 properties, which will give 15 apartments of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and it has space to house 20 students, because as you know, Rio Piedras is a university city. It has the Rio Piedras campus around it, so there's a very important student community. And we are looking forward to give them housing too, because students are the poorest in the community many times. So they are one of the populations that are in most need and are the ones that are going to be affected the most by this hike in rent prices and everything that are currently going on in Rio Piedras. So we're starting in Rio Piedras. We want to have 50 new units, but our long-term plan is to put on 100 new units of housing. We are currently examining 2 properties, but of course we need to buy much more of those if we are going to get to that number of 85 to 100 new units in Rio Piedras in the next 3 years, let's say. Of course, we're talking about buying the properties. Of course, the process of rehabilitating them, it's going to take some time. This
more time.
Yeah. But if we can retire them from market and secure them, that's a big win.
Someone
was-
My question was
Pedro,
gonna be-
go
No,
ahead.
I just wanted to, someone was asking, what are we doing to address these problems in the island? And I think that we have been actively engaging in communications through social platforms and other means. And we're also, we have been very lucky to be able to tap into some of our most visible performers in the world. I was part of El Apagón video with Bianca Tiroló. Yeah, Bad Bunny. So and I think that's part of it. And we have to find ways in which we can put our messages across, and trying to find means in which we can engage other people and convey the message and the awareness. We're fighting many battles here in Puerto Rico, and it's exhausting. But we need everyone to have a place and to be able to engage in all of these local issues. Being an absent owner of a property in Puerto Rico, if you are one of those people that own property in Puerto Rico, making sure that that property is rented to a local person. If you have a farm and it can be rented out to young agricultors, or you have an apartment and you rent it out long-term to local people, you make a huge difference. It makes a big difference not having that apartment as a vacant lot and not having it in the short-term rental platforms. We need housing in Puerto Rico, and we're, as Alonso was mentioning, we're losing that property, and a lot of people are losing access. But the same thing is going on in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, in New York. And I was talking to several people while I was there 2 weeks ago. And that whole area is being gentrified, and Puerto Ricans are fighting over there under very similar conditions. However, they don't have the added problem of Act 60. And you know, we have to be we have to find ways in which we can collaborate. We have learned a lot in the past few years. I used to own a company, a social media communication company, but I never I was never featured in anything that I did. I did this for my clients, so I learned a lot through my clients, but now I have moved up front with El Urbanista, trying to convey these ideas. We don't do it, we do it locally. We've been trying to engage the people here in Puerto Rico on issues regarding land use that are very local. That's why most of the stuff that we do it in Spanish, and we do it in using local conditions and terms. But in the next year, we're gonna start moving out of Puerto Rico and trying to communicate outside of the people here in Puerto Rico. Our reach has increased significantly in the past year, and I think that the next step is moving to a broader audience and conveying messages also in English, so we can engage others in this endeavor.
Well, yeah, that's fantastic. I know that a participant here, Frankie Lozada, had a question. Frankie, do you want to ask it? Hello.
Yeah, I love everything you guys are doing, everything you guys are saying. My confusion and my question would be, why are we so focused on buying properties? You know, if our argument is that investors are coming in and taking advantage of people and buying their properties for cheap, shouldn't we be focusing more on partnerships with existing buildings and working with putting their buildings up to code, offering fair housing with them? Because logically, if you're trying to buy buildings and you're talking about having to build the income, having to build the capital to fix up all these buildings and buy the buildings, when instead you could start doing that and working on the fair housing, just like you did about saying rent to local Puerto Ricans, lend your land out for agriculturalists. I just don't understand that concept of it.
Thank you. You guys want to take that, Alonso?
Yes, that's a great question, and actually, I wanted to clarify that. For example, in next 2-3 years, we want to buy, for example, 7 to 8 properties. Of those properties, there are 3 properties that does not need rehabilitation or fixing, that are currently semi or wholly occupied, and that are being amenazadas. I'm sorry. How do you say amenazada?
They are
threatened by these invaders that want to buy them. So we are also studying the possibility of getting into agreements with owners of properties that are right now not occupied, but that they don't want to sell them. So something that we're studying is the possibility to tell them, you don't have to sell them. You just have to, make an agreement to us in which we have rehabilitated and we administrate it for, let's say, 10, 20 years, and we decide who gets to be a tenant there. And so we're looking for a lot of strategies to get to that and to comply with our purposes. However, buying properties that are currently occupied, it's much more expensive than buying those that are not. And that's a situation. For example, if you have $1 million, with $1 million, you can buy, in the case that we're looking into this two properties, you can house almost 45 people, 50 people in that property alone. That amount of money does not, cannot buy in Rio Piedras a property that is currently being used. So there are economic and local economic situations that makes us to balance how we approach, and as the situation in the community develops, we are, looking forward to make a mix in the kind of properties that we will be buying in order to, address that situation, because it's true. It's much faster.
Thank you, Alonso.
And in long term cheaper, to buy this.
And thank you, everyone. We have, it's 5:11. I know this can go forever. On behalf of Boricuas Unidos and La Diáspora, I really want to thank you again, Pedro, Alonso, part of our team, Merari, and Alberto, that we're back in the technical piece. We are also proudly supporting the Center for Popular Democracy campaign around Puerto Rico no se vende. We are engaging Congress people in DC and talking about these issues. There's interest about this issue. You can follow us in our social media. Our website is www.botpr.org. We are in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I really appreciate all of your time today. Thank you so much. And again, we'll be more than happy to have Pedro and Alonso again, and many other folks that are fighting for all of Puerto Ricans' right to stay in Puerto Rico and have our homeland. So thank you. Have a great rest of your evening, your afternoon. And I think we are done. Alberto, take it away.
Gracias, gente.
Gracias.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.